Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And thank you for joining this learning experience brought to you by ngrok. My name is Cody, and welcome back to Tech Strong Learning. We have an exciting panel ahead, but before we dive into this conversation, we have just a couple of notes I'd like to review with you. First off, we are recording our session today. So if you miss any of our discussion, if you'd like to watch again at a later time, or if you'd like to share this with the rest of your team, you will be receiving the on-demand recording sent to you via email shortly after we conclude this live session today. Now, if you'd like to get involved, there are a couple of ways to do so. The first is to use the chat tab on the right side of your screen. So when you find that chat tab, I'd like you to let us know from where in the world you are joining us from today. Now, if you have specific questions, we do want you to direct those to the Q&A tab on the right side of that chat section. And sending your questions to that Q&A just helps us keep track of all of them. And we'd really like to be sure to weave your questions into our conversation. So be sure to send them in when you have them and when they're relevant, and we'll do our best to address them. Additionally, if there is the handout section, if you'd like to download a couple of additional resources that we've provided for you. And I will be selecting two of our most engaged attendees today to win a $50 Amazon gift card. Ways to become eligible are to send in chats, questions, and of course, filling out our post-webinar survey. So our topic is accelerating dev test cycles for Kubernetes apps with ngrok and Rancher. Today, I'm joined by Selena Ward, Engineering Manager for Development Growth at ngrok. We're also joined by Nikolai Petrov, Senior Software Engineer for Developer Growth at ngrok. We are also joined by Bertrand Thomas, Solutions Architect at SUSE and Rancher. And we are being led in our conversation today by Claire Shaw, Head of Partnerships at ngrok. So Claire, Selena, Nikolai, and Bertrand, thank you all so much for joining us today. Claire, I'm going to give you the mic and let you dive us right in, and we'll see if we can get Nikolai back on screen with us.
Sounds great. Yes, I hope you can. He's crucial to our conversation today. Thank you so much, Cody, and thank you, DevOps.com, for hosting us. And thank you so much to everyone who's on the call for joining us today from, it seems like, truly all over the world. My name is Claire Shaw, and I lead partnerships at ngrok, which means I manage our ecosystem of technology partners who we work with to bring great solutions to life for all of our developers who are building amazing products with ngrok and those other incredible technology tools and platforms. My colleagues Selena and Nikolai are here from ngrok as well, and Bertrand is here as our special guest from our partner SUSE. As I'm sure many of you on the call know, DevOps practices and Kubernetes are critical for modernizing your applications, but testing those apps, deploying them in production Kubernetes environments, and then everything that comes with managing Kubernetes itself, those can all pose some pretty big challenges. Software developers need secure ingress for their applications and services in test dev environments to test integrations with things like webhook providers and external APIs and preview them with fellow developers. And once that development and testing is complete, these need to be transitioned into production. So the ngrok and SUSE teams are really excited to be here today to share ways to accelerate that kind of feature velocity by overcoming all of the complexity of delivering applications that run in Kubernetes. So let's dive right in and get started with some of the basics. What is ngrok and what is Rancher, and why are these two platforms better together? And Selena, I'll turn it over to you to get us started.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you so much, Claire. Hey, everyone. My name is Selena. I am an engineering manager at ngrok, and I manage a developer growth team where we wear very many hats. And one of those hats is developing and managing our open source SDKs, including our Kubernetes ingress controller. So ngrok is a unified ingress platform that equips developers and ops teams to deliver apps and APIs across the development lifecycle, all the way from local development environments running on your machine to live in production. So over 5 million users and enterprise customers such as Databricks and HashiCorp rely on ngrok to serve applications and APIs to all of their customers. So ngrok brings encrypted ingress instantly to applications and APIs and test development environments, supercharging developer productivity. Also, external networks, accelerating customer deployments and device management. And last but not least, applications and APIs in production, accelerating time to market. And now I'll pass it to Bertrand to speak all about SUSE and Rancher.
Thank you, Selina. And hi, everyone. I'm Bertrand Thomas. I'm a solution architect at SUSE. And just to let you know, I started as a developer 20 years ago. So developer experience is a big thing for me. And my career has been focused on building information system and trying to get better at it. This is why I'm an advocate about DevOps, Kubernetes, and open source. And speaking of open source, at SUSE, we do provide Rancher, which is a platform to manage Kubernetes clusters that can work on any infrastructure, any systems. And basically, Rancher addresses the operational and security challenges of managing multiple Kubernetes clusters while providing build teams with integrated tools for running workloads and containers. So you may think, okay, so we got ngrok, right? We've got Rancher, but why are they better together? Just to keep it short, Rancher equips developers to run any kind of workload on any platform, public cloud, multi-cloud, private cloud, on-prem. And then we've got developers that can leverage ngrok to safely expose these workloads to the internet from any of these environments. And even more, both services are designed for very large scale and with security in mind. So I think you may have other questions. Claire, what is next?
Thank you. Yes, I've got a question for Nico, but while we're waiting for him to log back on, Selina, I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about Rancher and ngrok working together and how these two come together to even be better than the sum of their parts.
Yes, so Bertrand explained how Rancher equips developers to run any kind of workload on any platform, public cloud, multi-cloud, private cloud, on-prem. So no matter what your cloud configuration is, if it's one of these or many of these, developers can leverage ngrok to safely expose these workloads to the internet from any of those environments with a zero networking configuration. So it's a single configuration for all of your environments, no matter how you configure that. And even more, both services are designed for a very large scale with security in mind. So I'll pass it back to you, Claire.
Okay, fantastic. And I think I'm going to volley it straight back to you, Selina. So we've covered ngrok and SUSE Rancher and ngrok and SUSE Rancher together. Let's also take a step back quickly and just talk about Kubernetes and what it is and when you might need a multi-cluster Kubernetes environment.
Awesome, sounds good. Happy to talk about Kubernetes. So Kubernetes, for folks who don't know, Kubernetes is an open source container orchestration platform that automates the deployment, scaling, and management of containerized applications. It's widely available on major cloud providers such as AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, so it offers enterprises the flexibility to deploy and manage applications seamlessly across diverse cloud environments, typically in a microservice configuration. So a large-scale platform may have separate teams responsible for front-end, back-end, and analytics developments, all working on separate teams. And microservices allow each team to deploy and update their services independently, accelerating their development speed. Ultimately, Kubernetes achieves improved resource utilization, enhanced scalability, and simplified development workloads by dynamically allocating and managing resources based on application needs, auto-scaling capabilities, and declarative configurations with features such as automated load balancing, self-healing, and seamless updates. So how do you know when you need a multi-cluster Kubernetes environment? So when you need a multi-cluster Kubernetes environment, you're running into two main challenges. One would be providing high availability to your customers, and the other one is you're seeking cost optimization avenues. So to speak to the first one, if you're running into challenges providing high availability to your customers, whether in terms of latency or downtime, multi-cluster achieves geographical distribution. This is really great for when your application is accessed globally. So in a multi-cluster setup, organizations can deploy clusters in different geographical regions, which minimizes latency and improves the user experience for applications accessed globally. In terms of high availability, redundancy, and disaster recovery, deploying clusters across different availability zones and regions, enterprises enhance the availability and resilience of their applications. So in the event of a failure or disaster in one cluster, traffic can be redirected to another, minimizing downtime and ensuring business continuity. Last but not least, scaling independently leads to resource and cost optimization. So multi-cluster Kubernetes environments allow for independent auto-scaling of the clusters based on the workload demands of those specific applications in those specific geographical regions. So this flexibility is really valuable for large enterprises with diverse and evolving application requirements. So a general example would be a media streaming service using Kubernetes to automatically scale resources during peak usage hours according to geographic location and scale down during periods of lower demand will help your overall cloud costs as a business.
Great. Thank you so much, Selena and Nikki. So glad to have you back online. You all are the technical experts. I'm more on the business side. And so to me, all of this sounds really great. This reduced latency, potential cost optimization. This is sounding like a pretty great solution. Bertrand, are there perhaps some challenges maybe related to networking challenges with driving traffic to these Kubernetes environments?
Yes, Claire, and thank you. Yes, there are. And once again, I'm a developer, so when I hear about this, the first two challenges I can see are the management of DNS entries and certificates. This is very common concerns for developers, and I'm sorry, migrating to Kubernetes won't solve these issues by themselves. You need to do something on top of it. And basically, so when you are on a Kubernetes cluster, you will create a workload, you will create a deployment, a container, something, and then you would like to expose it. And this is how it can be difficult, just to find the right domain name, registry, make the link on internet, and have a valid certificate. And on this subject, for people who would like to help me, I would be curious to know who in the audience has already experienced an outage because of an expired certificate, or if you had any issue like you are in a company, you would like to have a new environment and you have to wait weeks, so you have your new domain registered in firewalls. So if you want, I would like to know if you want to don't to leave me by myself and know if I'm not the only one who had it in his career. And then something that are also very important, there are the security and availability related concerns. By default, it can be very dangerous and complicated for a developer to share publicly an application running in a container, in a cluster, sorry, even for test purposes. And as Selena next explained, we can achieve great things with Kubernetes. It's great, it's a new standard, it's very, very interesting. It's a wonderful playground, but the networking piece is not the easiest one to understand and master. I don't know if it was the same, but when I learned Kubernetes, it was the piece that maybe was a little more difficult than the other. At least with Rancher, I'm happy because I've got a nice UI to go through all the Kubernetes networking objects and gain knowledge, but still something not easy to start with. And Nikolai, what are your thoughts on these challenges?
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm Nikolai here at ngrok. Sorry, I had some internet troubles, but some of the projects I've been involved include the ngrok Kubernetes controller, which allow people to use the power of ngrok in Kubernetes environment. And yeah, DNS and certificates are tough, but also general networking. The first time I used ngrok, it worked like magic. You just type a command and you're online and you can present to your buddy or to your company, whatever. I didn't care about firewalls or anything, any networking. I didn't know some of that, but I didn't care really. And then ngrok carries this easiness of ingress into the Kubernetes world, where instead of you, the developer, spending a lot of time configuring the network and security in Kubernetes, and frequently in the environment that Kubernetes is running in, like your cloud provider or behind the firewall, you can easily expose your application to the world. And all this comes with the added benefit that ngrok actually handles a lot of minute details like provisioning domains, provisioning certificates, and keeping them up to date, load balancing, and so forth. Yeah, clear.
Great. Thank you, Nikolai. Glad we could get you back on. And I'll remind folks who are tuning in as well. I know we're covering a whole bunch of different technical and business topics. So if any of these are sparking questions or comments or thoughts from you, feel free to put those in the Q&A and we'll get to them toward the end of the call or weave them through into the conversation. So we covered just a moment ago a lot of some of the different technical challenges that come with working with Kubernetes. And Selena, could you speak to some of the business issues that might arise as a result of some of those thorny technical issues?
Absolutely. Happy to, Claire. And thank you, Nikki, for providing your seamless experience using ngrok. You said you didn't have to provision your domain certificates, firewall, all of that was really out of the box for you. So I'm curious to hear if there's other folks in the chat who have experienced pain points with these things, getting your application online. So that being said, going into the business challenges, one obstacle from these technical challenges is facilitating developer productivity across multiple knowledge domains. As it stands today, ingress concepts such as microservice configuration, managing secrets, network policies, they all require specific attention when exposing your application to the public internet to reduce risk to the business. Typically, each of these are handled by different departments with traditionally different knowledge bases. So microservices are usually handled by application developers, secrets management is handled by the security team, and network administrators handle the network policies, such as a firewall configuration. So these days, it's increasingly challenging for developers to maintain operational procedures, keep documentation up to date, and then share these knowledge across the teams, especially as the application grows and the teams scale and the company scales. Typically, the ingress concepts are covered by separate teams, like we said. So having these teams liaison with each other over time as the company grows, and every time the software needs an update or configuration change, all these teams have to get together, and that really hinders operational agility.
That makes sense, and thanks for translating a lot of those technical issues into a business framework that's very ingestible for me. It sounds like that alignment, needing to get that kind of alignment across so many different teams, can hamper the pace of innovation internally for businesses, whether they're big or small. And as you noted, that can delay the time to market and reduce businesses' overall competitive advantage. This is pretty complex stuff, so I'm glad we have these technical experts on the call to walk us through it. As that, I know that degree of complexity alone can be really challenging for teams, on top of a lot of the resource requirements like skilled personnel and teams, and also just the hardware infrastructure. Not to mention things like having to integrate all of this into existing systems and managing and mitigating security concerns, all of the operational overhead. These can all be pretty tricky things to navigate. I know Bertrand, one of the things that you had pointed out previously as well was this topic of environment independence and vendor lock-in, and how that can be kind of tricky. So please enlighten us on that and how that can be mitigated.
Thank you, Claire. I will try. And this is clearly my job as a solution architect. So it's up to every team and organization to design a solution that fits their needs. But this decision can have important consequences. So it's obvious, but it's still very important to share and to know. So we talked about the technical challenges and how to address it. So it's the job of every team. And one entity can decide to design a solution from scratch, for example, based on open source components. But it will require time, rigor, and expertise to meet the expectation. And there is a chance to have a solution that is overly complicated to run and maintain, as not at reaching the level of quality expected. So this is one way to do it with the risk associated. The other way to do it is another entity can choose to use an existing solution that covers parts or completely the need that is identified. But here there is a potential issue of getting locked in. And so for those who are not familiar, a lock-in is a situation where an organization becomes dependent on a particular technology, product, or service to the extent that it becomes challenging or costly to switch to an alternative. And this risk must really be evaluated and mitigated. If you want to go this road, you need to be careful and also to assume the risk and the decision afterwards on this. But still, it can be mitigated, for example, like using open standards to make sure there are interoperable systems with portable data and do contingency planning. So that's pretty much resumed. Claire, up to you.
Great. So it sounds like it takes a little bit of forethought to plan around and mitigate for lock-in and some of these other challenges we've talked about. Nicoy, can you share with us how using ngrok can help address some of those challenges?
Yeah, for sure, Claire. So I think ngrok lets the developers focus mostly on delivering their applications and relieve them from thinking about general network and general how to drive the traffic into their application, which can be as simple as directly hitting your app, or it can be as complicated as provisioning domains and certificates, IP restrictions, using auth or load balancing, geo-friendly routing, rate limiting, and whatnot. It acts like an API gateway. By doing this, and taking care of networking security, ngrok also dramatically reduces time to market for businesses because they don't need to reinvent the wheel or look for piecemeal components to incorporate in their stack to handle all these concerns. ngrok also reduces the platform lock-in because it works on any platform, be it Linux, Windows, even FreeBSD, as well as the cloud or on-prem, whether you want to use it in AWS or in your server under the disk, it's all the same.
Nice. And Bertrand, same question over to you. How does utilizing Rancher make a lot of these problems not such a big problem?
Thank you, Claire. And it's very important to us. It's the way it has been designed. So this is a very sensitive part for me to talk about. So Rancher, and it's a good use case. And please challenge me, challenge us, ask questions if you think there is something to clarify. But Rancher is an open source product component. And there is no paywall. So this is what I would say, it's a true open source. And there is no limitation in features whatsoever. You have the same feature whether you've got a subscription with SUSE or not. So you can use, you can try it for free, you can use it for free. You can have it on any Kubernetes distribution. Obviously, there are some distributions we do, so you can use them, but whatever, as long as it's certified by the CNCF, it will work fine. It works on any Linux distribution. Once again, you may understand that we kind of like Linux distribution at SUSE, but still, whatever, if it's a Linux distribution, it will work fine, and it works on any infrastructure. So, and something that is very good, well, important for me, as I'm a developer and formerly an architect, it's a weak coupling so with the cluster. So basically, we've got, as you can see in the diagram, we've got Rancher that is installed in a cluster, Kubernetes cluster, and then there is a link with the managed clusters. And when I say weak link, it means that if you have an existing clusters, it's very easy to add Rancher on top of it. It will basically install an agent. But at some time, if you want to remove it, again, you can do it freely, no issue. They won't have any impact on it. And in the case where Rancher fails, obviously it does not happen, but we can still think it may happen. It has no impact on the managed cluster. So this is why it's very important in terms of design of the solution. Rancher doesn't have a strong impact. You can use your own clusters, and even afterwards, if you want to remove Rancher, you can still keep your clusters. So something very important. And if we look at the workload side, it is the same approach. So basically, Rancher and SUSE, we do base on our code based on specifications or interface definition. So we do follow what is done on Kubernetes and in the CNCF in general, like for example, CSI, CNI, as long as we do respect the interface, it will work fine. So when you design a cloud native solution, you do enjoy, you want to use all the shiny, the new stuff, the thing you like, whatever. And this is the part I like a lot. You can choose whatever you want. It will work fine with Rancher. And this is very, very important. And an example, I don't know if you practice something linked to GitOps methodology, but at SUSE, we have an application that is called Fleet that will make it happen to make changes in infrastructure from a Git repository. But if you want to use Argo CD or Flex, that's more than fine. And it will be even encouraged depending on the scenario. And we can even provide SLA and support on the most used cloud-native applications like Grafana. So for me, this is why there is no lock-in. If you want to summarize, Rancher comes as an addition to your infrastructure, and you can remove it at any time. And this is the whole idea we have. It's at SUSE, you come as you are. This is what we want to achieve. So Claire, I hope it answers the question, but it's done for me.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. That's that freedom that comes with using Rancher sounds like a really powerful capability. And another capability that kind of ngrok can bring here is on the ingress and the connectivity side. And so, Nikolai, I'd like to turn it over to you to share specifically how ngrok delivers that connectivity to Kubernetes environments. And I've got a diagram for that as well that you can speak to.
Yeah, so we at ngrok work very hard to deliver ngrok Kubernetes ingress controller, which is basically making it as easy as using the normal ngrok agent to run ngrok. So you basically install your ngrok ingress controller. It's already using Helm, so it's using already the industry best practices to use in Kubernetes. You just add your ingress CRD and describe what kind of ingress you need, and ngrok syncs it up with the SaaS application, and the traffic is flowing. At this point, however, the ingress CRD is pretty bare bones by itself because it has to be generic and work for different use cases. So ngrok allows you via some custom CRDs to actually add additional functionality to your ingress, things like IP restrictions, OAuth or OIDC, and more. Of course, not only that, but the whole power of ngrok is available through ngrok specific CRDs. We have even customers who are using ngrok CRDs to actually drive traffic to Kafka clusters. So instead of serving the normal HTTP stuff, they are basically exposing Kafka to the world. Of course, with TLS and everything, but sure, that's about it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nikolai. So let's speak to the combination of ngrok and Rancher together. I see some questions in the chat as well about demos and a little bit more information. We've got some resources to share there, and to put Bertrand on the spot regarding a demo. I think you just mentioned you would start building that tomorrow, if that's correct. So
So it's kind of a spoiler alert. It's something I wanted to give because I'm very happy to make this webinar. So I will be very pleased. If you are interested, it can come. It can be in YouTube tomorrow.
Fabulous. Ask and we shall deliver, or Bertrand shall deliver. Thank you so much. We also have a very in-depth blog post resource that will be shared out as well that gets into best practices and some of the advantages of using Rancher and ngrok in tandem. So let's, I guess we can tease up some of those amazing features of using these platforms together then in this next question. How does the combination of these two simplify that application delivery process across dev test to those production environments? So Bertrand, we'll start with you.
You can see I'm well educated, so I don't speak. Thanks very much, Claire. So it's a very good question, and it's something that is very important to my heart because I'm a developer and I'm kind of bad with networking. So I hope there is no one from my company in this webinar. So, but still, for me, I like to develop. I like to push my workload, to look at it. When it comes to networking, to certificates, this kind of stuff, it can be very challenging. And this is why I like so much ngrok and the combination with Rancher, because Rancher is great, really, because it simplifies all the workload execution and management on any infrastructure. So You can see it as a layer between you and your infrastructure, which is good because it's an abstraction. It will simplify a lot of stuff. So Rancher is very good on this part. But then at some point we need to, to expose what we do. Like we got a web application, well, we need something to provide. And this is why ngrok is so interesting, because it's something that is simple and secure. So kind of two of my best things. And we have all the needed features we may need that are related to the networking and exposure. So by following standards and best practices, we do have here a very interesting technical stack to work with containers that address both needs, both the low level with infrastructure and the higher level with internet or potentially intranet. And Selina, what is your view on it?
Yes, thank you, Bertrand. I think, by following, like you said, the best standards and best practices, the work becomes a lot more interesting for the engineers, and I'm really happy to speak to that. I would go even so far to say as reducing that boilerplate, setting up your ingress, setting up your clusters makes the development experience more interesting and engaging with the actual business problem that you were trying to solve, and less distracting to developing your application. So I would say that both ngrok and Rancher have a shared narrative of accelerated innovation for the modern software development lifecycle. In common, they reduce friction between development and operations teams. They simplify complicated, cost-prohibitive administrative tasks with no unique added value. And developers can create and launch an end-to-end development and production environment in a matter of minutes. I can speak to this having worked in so many different environments. I was an engineer at an investment bank where we were, writing code, deploying it to an on-prem server in New Jersey with TeamCity. That was just had its own headaches. I was moving from that. I went to an employee number 11 at a startup where we all bootstrapped with Kubernetes, and I saw how easy and fast it was to get, ourselves up and going with Kubernetes. But, as far as putting into customers' environments, ingress was a big issue. Also working at Uber, we were on-prem at the time that I joined, moving to multi-cloud. That was a big, 3+ year project as well. And now I work at ngrok, we're fully on the cloud. I've been in many different environments where this headache has been a pattern. So really excited for ngrok and Rancher to come together to help solve this problem for developers across the world.
Awesome. Thank you both for sharing your experiences, not just in your current roles, but in the past as well. We've talked a lot about ngrok specifically with regard to Kubernetes. Also want to just take the opportunity to share some of the other use cases that ngrok can support as well. We're currently loved by 5 million developers to bring secure connectivity to their local host environments for things like testing webhooks and previewing apps with their colleagues. And want to highlight just a couple of the other things that you can use the ngrok platform for as well. And let's start with Nikki to highlight some of those.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're doing really good is ingress into external networks, specifically customers' networks. So this is often time-consuming, as you have to deal with VPNs, VPC peering, private link, firewall configurations. Frequently, these require extensive security reviews and approvals. This delays time to market, time to value, and leads to a lot of dissatisfaction and churn. So ngrok empowers enterprises to securely connect to customers' environments, frequently unlocking modern architectures like bring your own cloud, where this is an architecture that addresses data privacy and processing costs for SaaS providers. An example of this is our customer Databricks. We streamline network access, eliminating the need for time-consuming configurations, like I said, VPNs and firewalls. And this usually reduces time for deployment from months to days and even hours, where you can basically start ingesting data or communicating with customers' data within a matter of hours. I know we have other uses, like IoT devices, for which Selina can speak to.
Yes, definitely. And for folks who are interested, our team just did a webinar on Databricks, also with TechStrong, that you can check out on the TechStrong site. That would speak to Nikki's example. So thank you so much. Yes, so in terms of ingress for external networks, specifically for devices and IoT devices, securing IoT devices like publicly exposed point of sale systems or factory robots, all of these require access to the corporate intranet, but also access, to the public internet. All of this presents security challenges and risks such as unauthorized access, data interception, and insufficient network segmentation between the public internet and the corporate intranet. Each site operates with its unique ISP, networking, and port forwarding rules and firewall policies. So this variability across sites requires custom programming and configurations where manually configuring and maintaining these custom setups becomes impractical, hindering your ability to scale to thousands or millions of sites. Misconfigurations can cause downtime for end customers. Working at Uber for 3 years, the number one cause of outages after we did an investigation was the deployment of configuration changes. So this can be a real risk to your business. With ngrok, ngrok eliminates the sprawling complexity of IoT device management by offering a unified, secure ingress solution, standardizing connectivity across diverse environments without burdening partners with extra support or network modifications. For example, Rinse.co is a company that connects to car wash point of sale systems at several car wash companies and locations nationwide to sell car wash memberships to car drivers wanting to wash their car at multiple locations. In terms of the car wash industry, all of these systems are decades old legacy systems, and these companies could have very well required both hardware and software upgrades to connect to some sort of VPN to be able to work with Rinse. We're talking about 2,000 plus companies. So Rinse value proposition is getting more out of your existing point of sale system and your website without changing or adding any hardware. So I'll pass it back to you, Claire.
Great, thank you. And I'll touch on one last one, which is ingress for production applications and APIs. This capability really allows large companies to be a lot more nimble and make that move to multi-cluster cloud environments by reducing some of the security risks that we've talked about, and also with the knowledge that every connection is TLS encrypted, which is really important. We know that bringing an application or API into production can take a very long time, as we've talked about, and this can require these code and network changes, as well as all of this heavy lifting of big cross-functional coordination across all those security and operations teams to make all of this work. So it can be challenging, but with ngrok, we hope to reduce a lot of that complexity of this application and API delivery by flattening all of those separate layers of configuration just into one, as you can see in the slide here. This way, developers can simplify their workloads. You can accelerate development and feature and product launch times and boost overall performance by utilizing our unified ingress that combines a whole host of important tools: load balancers, API gateway, Kubernetes ingress controller, reverse proxy. The list goes on and on. All of these get compressed into one single platform powered by ngrok's global network. So these are just a couple of examples of the ways that the ngrok platform can simplify your life, simplify your workload in pretty critical ways. And I'll have one last question over to Bertrand before we turn it over and tackle some of the audience Q&A. And so we dive into some of your questions. And this is for more on the partnership side. Bertrand, can you share a little bit about what was exciting to you and to Sue Brancher about partnering with ngrok and getting to work with us on this webinar and beyond?
I like the beyond. Thank you, Claire, again. And for us, it's very interesting to work with ngrok first because in our product portfolio, so we do a lot of stuff. We do Linux distribution. We do a lot of components, open source components in the cloud native world, but we don't have something in this area with what is giving ngrok. So it's very interesting for us. It's a great addition to our product portfolio. So in terms of product, it's great. And what we like, it's we have the same DNA between the two companies because I know Rancher Labs was in the day, and I think the case for you also. It's really built first on developer experience. It's really to address the developer need inside. So this is very important for us, and also we are looking for operational excellence. So this is the two elements that are very important for us, and this is why also we are very happy to have a partnership with ngrok, because this is really what we try to achieve, to provide to everyone. And also on the other side, it's very interesting to work with you because it's a very positive energy. And on a personal note, for me, I really enjoyed my time with you. So I'm really looking forward to go far and beyond with the ngrok team.
Fantastic. Likewise. We will start fielding questions from the chat, so feel free to continue to submit those, and we'll just go as long as we receive questions and as time allots. I'll start with this one here from Jessie. I believe this is over to you, Bertrand, or we can give some uneducated guesses. Question, what happens when the Rancher server crashes? I'm sure this doesn't happen very frequently.
No, never happens. Let's say, hypothetically, yeah, we consider it may crash. So Rancher is a cloud native application. So you will install it with Helm, for instance. So basically, it's Kubernetes objects. There is some containers. And the only thing that is important to know, we do install Rancher in a Kubernetes cluster. So you need a Kubernetes cluster to then manage others. But it's very easy to set up either with a script or with Terraform or with OpenTofu, with other things. So it runs in a dedicated Kubernetes cluster. And if a container fails, for example, then the service will be done. It will be detected. This is also the beauty of Kubernetes. So obviously, we'll try to fix it and everything. But if there is really a big issue, a Rancher will fail, but it will not have any impact on the managed clusters. Because the agent will detect that the Rancher server is done, okay? So he will not do anything. The only impact is that you will not be able to make changes from Rancher to the Kubernetes cluster if you wanted to do it. But still, if you want, you can still access the Kubernetes clusters, the ones that are managed, that we call the downstream clusters. You can still use it as any other clusters, and you can still make some changes. So there is no issue. So it's really what is important to understand. So if Rancher fails, you can so the clusters, the workload, the real workload, business workload is still running and using Kubernetes, so it's fine. You can still access the different clusters through the API. It's not something we recommend because with Rancher, you have a lot of control and give access to the teams thanks to Airback. So when you use, for example, the kube control command line, it will go through Rancher, but if you need to access the cluster, you can still access it directly. So I hope it answers correctly. Maybe a lot of sentences. Feel free to reach out.
Yes, please pop in the chat if you have any further questions there or want any additional clarification. I saw there's a few questions, conversation about the origin of ngrok's name. And if you came to the webinar hoping just to learn how to pronounce ngrok and SUSE, I hope we've answered those questions. I hope I'm pronouncing SUSE correctly. And yeah. Wasim, you are onto the right track here with N for network and the grok combination. Let me turn over to some of the other questions, and I'll put this one on the screen just to make sure I've got the right wording here with regard to how we handle different use cases where there need to be custom ports for things like hosting a container registry on a standard registry port like 5000. And team, open it up to someone to take a crack at this one.
Happy to answer the bare bones of this. So a standard registry port like 5000 is a TCP port. ngrok does support TCP forwarding. So the command in your terminal will be ngrok TCP and then your port, and you would get that same functionality. Nikki, would you be able to expand on that with the ingress controller, or how we plan to support that in the future?
Yeah, I mean, the ingress definition it's only for HTTP. So you cannot actually use that to at least securely connect to that, but you can still use ngrok specific CFDs like Tonneau and Endpoint Edge to actually expose it via the ngrok SaaS to the world, it will come out at ngrok a different port, and it will link it up through internally to the right thing that you're trying to expose to the internet. Yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Thank you both. I've got another question here. Let me bring this one up on the screen. I think this is also probably fair game as well for the three of you. How collaborative is the use of ngrok and Rancher within dev teams, and what features or functionalities enhance team collaboration in the context of testing, deploying, managing applications in Kubernetes environments?
I can speak for Rancher if you want, but you will have to time box me because this one I can take a lot of time. So we are on DevOps event, so very important. I'm used to say that there is no DevOps tool, so I'm sorry, it's not my vision, except in some particular cases where, and for me, Rancher is a tool that can help a DevOps transformation because on the same tool, we've got people from operation, people from development, people from, I don't know, marketing, product, whatever, on the same product, speaking the same language. So for me, the best tool for DevOps is having a coffee or tea together. It's kind of in the same, but digitally, meaning that we have both worlds on it, which is good. And on one side, we've got operations that fits their need because they do manage the clusters. They make sure that everything is well controlled. And so the security guarantee, high availability is met. But at the same time, we can give access to the development teams, to the build teams. And this is very important. If we want to achieve the goal behind DevOps, we need to have development teams that are autonomous, that are able to create an environment like in a matter of minutes, and they can do this with Rancher. So, and still, the same people are on the same tool. So if maybe someone is missing a permission or has an issue, people from development can ask someone from operation or someone like platform engineering to help understand how Rancher works and everything. And for example, if they want to investigate and it's something early in the process, but still they want to look at the logs of the containers, they can do it in Rancher. Anyone, if they have the permission to have access to the workloads, they can do it. So this is how I will answer. I try to answer it shortly because it's a huge topic, but for me, it's very collaborative because we have all the same people on the same tool. So there is no, like if you wanted to go directly to a cloud provider, you will need to give access and everything, and then there is all complexity of the cloud behind. Whereas here, it's only focused on Kubernetes. So you got everything on Kubernetes and all the permission set on Kubernetes. So it's kind of straightforward. If you want to create an environment, we give you access. And this is my experience. I worked at Ubisoft, and I was used to ask for an environment and wait 3 months, 6 months, and maybe I've got one. I was at Ubisoft, I created the tickets. 30 minutes after, I got access to Rancher, and 10 minutes after, I've got my cluster. It was kind of a miracle for me. And this is what we want to achieve because development teams want to do good, want to deliver, want to show. When we speak about dev tests, what I like, it's like a preview branches. We want to show a specific feature. We are at the end of the sprint. We want to show some specific functionality. And it's very important to empower the development teams. So, and I will be done on this.
Selena, yes, go ahead, Selena.
Yeah, I think that's all great. Rancher provides that centralized platform for managing all of your Kubernetes clusters, and ngrok just integrates seamlessly into that. So ngrok will create secure ingress to any service in your Rancher cluster with just a few clicks, eliminating complex firewall configurations and network adjustments. So developers can instantly share pre-production environments with testers or stakeholders for remote access and feedback. In terms of real-time inspection, we are coming out with Traffic Insights. It is a feature that is, Traffic Insights will be in our ngrok dashboard. It's an inspection tool that allows detailed analysis of HTTP traffic flowing through the secure connection, which is really ideal for pinpointing bugs and issues during testing. And those are the two main things. Maybe Nikolai, do you have any other things to add? If not, it's all good. Awesome. Cool. Thanks.
Perfect. And there's another question for you, Bertrand, specifically on Rancher and OpenSUSE. Let me blow this one up as well. Case scenarios and demos implementing convolutional neural networks for healthcare applications. So interested to hear the answer to this. I can barely even pronounce the question. So take it away.
It's very interesting, but I will have to say that I need to ask internally. I can just tell, so OpenSUSE, it's the Linux or the Linux distribution that is, you can use it without any subscription or whatever. So it's the same as our enterprise version, SLES. So it's kind of the same, it's just two names for the same thing and two different business approach. So we've got the Linux distribution and Rancher. And very interesting. I don't want to say anything silly. So Julia, Elizabeth, if you want, I can ask internally. And I don't know if I should be able to reach you, but I would be glad to ask internally and see what we can provide on this. We do cover every business areas. So I'm sure somewhere I can find someone to answer this. But I'm sure it's out of my depths right now.
Thank you for the response and for the challenging questions, folks who submitted Q&As in the chat. We have gotten to the end of our questions and getting close to the end of our time. One last announcement that is very important to share is that if you enjoyed this conversation and liked getting a closer look at the ngrok and Rancher teams together, we will be together again in person at KubeCon and Cloud Native Con Europe later in March 19th to the 22nd in Paris. There are worse places to be. We will be at booth J30 and Rancher will be at booth G5, and you can find more information about our presences there on our websites very soon. We hope Bertrand will be our guide on the ground when we arrive. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. It was a fantastic conversation, and especially appreciate folks who are joining on European time zones and even farther east than that. I know it was late for a lot of folks. So thank you so much. And please do reach out again to us if you have any additional questions.
Awesome. Well, Claire, Nikolai, Selena, and Bertrand, thank y'all so much for joining us today. I know this last hour or so has just flown by, so I really appreciate all of you taking the time out of your schedule to join us for this conversation here on TechStrong Learning. So once again, thank you all. As for our audience, just a couple of final reminders. This session has been recorded and we will be sending it to you via email here shortly as soon as it becomes available. You'll also find it living on the DevOps website. That's devops.com/webinars, and you'll find it in the on-demand section soon. An additional reminder, I'll be selecting 2 of our most engaged attendees to win a $50 Amazon gift card. So thank you so much for your chats and your questions. But say you still want to become eligible, just fill out our post-webinar survey. We would love to hear your feedback, and we'd love to select you for a $50 Amazon gift card. So I would like to thank ngrok for sponsoring our program today. I'd like to thank our audience for their time. We appreciate your time, and we hope to see you at a future TechStrong Learning experience. Have a great rest of your day, and you may now disconnect. Thanks again to our panelists today.